Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So in my previous video, I showed you a vlog of my process sketching this whole page spread at Olympic Village, one of my old workplaces before the pandemic. And today I am moving on to the very last spread of my current sketchbook. I'm not going to sketch on this page is just for testing. This is the very last page spread of my current sketchbook and it's all filled up. Let's go. So first of all, I'm going to sketch this bag of chips. The package is full of crinkles and highlights. It's pretty challenging, but I think it's going to be fun to do. I also like the pink color of the package. And I'm going to sketch this little bowl of chips too. So as usual, when drawing an object, no matter how complex it is, I like to start with the outline, just focusing on the contour, the general shape of it. As you can see, this is a very distorted rectangle, and now I am drawing the pieces of corrugation on the upper and bottom part of the package, drawing the opening of the bowl and adding the rim using very loose and broken lines. Now both outlines are done. I'm ready to move on to the inner details, starting with this tomato cut in half and the chips. And because the surface of the package is very uneven, you don't have to draw perfect shapes. So even your shapes are wonky, it's actually kind of helping to show the uneven ups and downs on the package. So now just adding some accentuation with multiple lines and adding this logo of lace here on the very top. Again, this is kind of like this tortoise circle with a banner and the name of the brand. Adding a bit of highlight shapes here and there, very random organic shapes like little leaves. And writing the words chicken and tomato flavor. And just looking very carefully and deeply at the package to draw these crinkles and ridges, going up and down on the package. And adding further details like little words. You don't have to write out every single word just on the package. You can use squiggly lines to show that there's writing there. And the drawing part of the package is done. I'm just drawing these much more simpler shapes of the chips. These are kind of like moon shapes folded over to the other side. Very interesting curves. And adding a little bit broken lines inside to show the little textures of the fried potato chips. And that's it for the drawing part. Now I'm writing down the time and a little note. The flavor is very similar to the ones I had when I was little. And now I'm ready to paint watercolors. Okay, so very first of all, I'm going to wet the package area with clear water so the paint can spread out very smoothly. And most of the time I like to start with the lightest colors on the package, and a lot of times it's yellow. So I see the different parts of yellows, and I'm going to finish all of the yellows first to save time from going back and forth. So it's a great idea to paint the same colors first. And some red diluted into pinkish orange for the tomato. Now I'm starting to paint the general color of the package, which is pink, and skipping around some areas and leave them white to show the highlight of the plastic package. There are lots of highlights. So again, we don't have to leave out every single highlight that's on there. Just try your best to leave out the major ones, the ones that are really pretty big and obvious. And This part is actually pretty fun, and with just one single layer I'm able to show a bit of this plastic quality with the white highlights. Okay, so that's pretty much the first layer for the potato chip package. And just want to paint the red banner right here. Just use the vibrant red. And a little bit for the ring. Another little bit of red over here and there. Wet on wet for the tomato, just make it a little bit more vibrant. Now I'm moving on to the second layer for the package. So the pink needs a little bit of shade. So I mix in a little bit green, or you can mix in ultramarine blue too. Pretty much any green or any blue works to give a shade for the pink. And just adding this shade color as I observe, mostly around the lower bottom part of this package, because the light comes around the window around the upper part of the package. Yeah, just use thin brush strokes in general. This should be a little bit more precise than the previous layer. And again, skipping around those white highlights, and also skipping around some of the first layer's light pink to show the dull highlight, not the white highlight. And keep just adding this shade color on here and there. And just use pretty quick brush strokes to avoid over stirring, to keep the colors pretty clean. And that's pretty much it for the second layer. And now I'm going to add the even more intense shade by mixing in even more ultramarine blue into the pink purple. The darkest shade are around the very bottom of the package, as I observe. A lot of deep sinking ins. And at this part, I think we should be pretty brave. So just trust what you see, just get the most intense shades in to get the sharp contrast for this object. And again, I think the darkest shades are very minimal. I think covering only about 20% of the 20 to 30% of the whole package, not all over. So again, really control ourselves too, and not painting too dark all over. And add a bit of shade color for the red banner too. Very little choppy brush strokes. And just a few more final brush strokes as the final polish for this package. And that's it. Now I'm ready to paint the chips. Again, first layer is the lightest color, the mix of medium yellow and lemon yellow for the first layer. Very even wash, no shade yet. And use leftover kind of brownish color, dilute it to paint the color of the bowl. And mix on a little bit of orange for the surface of the chips. Yeah, just dashes of orange red here and there. And grabbing some raw umber to paint the little handle for the bowl. And add a little bit of shade around the body part of the bowl too. The inner surface. And grabbing a little bit leftover blue-purple for the shade inside the bowl. And that's pretty much it for the chips and the package. Now I'm ready to paint the shadows for both. Again, just wetting the shadow area with clear water because I want a really loose wash. And the first layer is pretty watery. It's a mix of ultramarine blue and pink purple. And a tiny bit of green too. Wet on wet, second layer, mix of ultramarine blue and pink purple. The shadow should be even darker around the very edge But because the upper part of the package is kind of lifted up, it doesn't really have a very solid shadow. And around the base of the bowl too, this part should be the darkest shadow for the package. And because the intensity of the watercolors tend to fade away a bit as it dries, now I decided to add even more intense shade, especially around the bottom part of the package, almost putting directly ultramarine blue on to get this super deep blue purple shade on there, especially around the bottom part. And that's it. Here's the look of my finished sketch of the bag of chips and the chips in the bowl. And the next day in the afternoon, I decided to sketch this new carton of eggs that I found in my local grocery store. It's a very interesting concept. It's called Cozy Coop. And just gonna sketch the carton somewhere here with a little bit of hand gesture. I'm going to sketch the carton unopened. I'm going to sketch another one opened with the eggs laying inside in the upper part. So now I'm just starting to sketch the lid part of the carton, which is a prism shape. As you can see, this is how I'm trying to add 3 dimensions with lines and loose broken lines. And the layers of folds of the cardboard, adding some accentuation to suggest shade in between the gaps. And now I am starting to draw the opening and the little cubicles for the eggs to sit inside. And because the egg carton is going a bit sideways, those cubicles look smaller further away to the right. And now I'm adding some simple vertical hatching lines to suggest a bit of shade to add more interest to the line work. And that's pretty much it for the general structure. And now I'm adding this best before date, which is a pretty interesting feature on any food package. And just drawing the C, the complement, the name of the brand, and the series of eggs is called Cozy Coop. So these eggs are coming from hens raised in very cozy coops, nice clean shelters, and in small groups. Now just drawing these cartoon shaped of hens and the straws underneath their bodies. And that's it for the line work. Now I'm ready to paint watercolors. So again, just wetting the whole area first with clear water, because the Arteza watercolor paper is actually pretty dry, so we really have to wet it first for the color to spread out very easily. For some other papers, you may not need to wet it, just add the colors directly. So there can be, a bit of difference between different brands of watercolor papers and mixed media papers. So yeah, I'm blending on some brown because I want to make the gray more interesting. Adding a little bit yellow ochre for the straws there, and just gonna add these 2 more little figures of hens, very cute. And so I mix the color of the egg carton by mixing ultramarine blue, bit of viridian green, and a bit of pink purple, and much diluted into a watery kind of gray. And now I am just adding this dark pink purple brownish color for the sticker, the package label on top of the carton, leaving a streak of highlight there of the cardboard fold is very important to help giving 3 dimension, very thin little white streak of highlight. And just adding a bit of more vibrant red pink over there for the little banner. And now it's time to add some more intense shade. So this is a mix of ultramarine blue and pink purple, a little bit of green, especially on the bottoms of these little paper cups. And same for the front part of the lid, right over here. Adding shade really helps to give 3 dimension to this box even more. Again, just let it go wet on wet very naturally with the first layer. And now I'm adding a more intense kind of pink brown color by mixing pink with burnt sienna or brown and less water because I want this color to be more intense. And as you can see, I'm not covering every single space from the first layer. I want a really soft, natural transition between the 2 layers of pink browns of different intensities. And adding some more dark gray shades here and there, especially around the rim of the lid. A few more brush strokes here and there, and that's pretty much it. A little shade for the white parts on the label because nothing is perfectly white except for the white highlights. And now I think I'm ready to paint the shadow. It's a little bit tricky because it's an overcast day, and so there's no strong sunshine or very strong daylight. So just very little bit, very soft and gentle around the bottom. It doesn't have a very definite outline. It's darker in between these little cups. Just try to make it nice and soft. Yeah, again, it's darker in between the little cups. And that's it. And moving on, I'm opening the egg carton showing the 7 eggs inside, and I will sketch them. This is more challenging than the first sketch. I like challenges because it's always very exciting and I'm not worried about making mistakes. Let's go. And kind of quickly visualizing the size and placement with a little bit hand gestures and mental image inside my head on a white paper space. And I'm starting to draw the left side of the carton, adding these 3 eggs. And there's also those volcano shaped things in between each egg. So really seeing and comparing the sizes between every egg. So every egg is pretty much the same size. And every of those volcano things is actually pretty much in very even distances. Keep adding the eggs, just half of them because the other half is inside the cup. Adding a little bit 3 dimension for these volcano shapes. And just adding these short little lines to show the thickness of the cardboard and the 3 dimension of these volcano shapes. Yeah, just use these little broken lines and curves. And this is pretty much the opening part of the carton. The lid is not so interesting, so I'm just including a little bit of it, as you can see. The other half of it is outside the page, and that makes this composition more interesting because you don't have to include every single part of an object inside the paper. And just drew these bottoms of the cups. And just adding the ridges in the middle of each cup. Add a little bit of vertical hatching, especially for the bottoms. And the sinking downs of these cups without the eggs. And that's it for the line work. Now back to watercolors again. So just wetting the whole area first with clear water. And grabbing some blue and mix in a bit of pink purple. I also mix in some yellow ochre because these cardboards are kind of having a yellowish gray tone. So that's why I mix in a bit of yellow ochre into the blue and pink purple. So again, there's so many kind of grays in the world. Okay, and now moving on to the second layer of painting the cardboard. It's a mix of ultramarine blue and pink purple and less water, so this color is more intense, adding the shade or shadows in between on one side of the volcano shapes, just so they look more three-dimensional, and also on the bottoms of the paper cups. Again, just use dashes of brush strokes. And very thin little brush strokes for smaller areas. Just a bit of shade for the inside of the lid there. And that's pretty much it for the cardboard carton painting part. Now I'm ready to paint the eggs. I just wetted the eggs first with clear water, just adding this leftover gray mostly on the left side because the light or the window is on the right side. And second layer wet on wet, leftover blue purple. Just a little push on the left side without over mixing. Just let the colors blend together by themselves. Nice and soft. And just adding some final little details. And now I'm ready to paint the shadow. Just wet it first and then use leftover pink purple. Spread it around very softly, lightly, just darker around the bottoms in between the gaps. That's it. And now I'm taking 2 or 3 eggs out. I'm going to sketch them in the leftover white space on the page, so it looks more active. Alright, so this part of the sketching should be really quick and relaxing, just drawing the outline. The upper part of these eggs are more pointy and the bottom parts are more round. There we go, and we don't have to be perfect. Just writing down a title, eggs, and the series, Cozy Coop. Just wetting the area first with clear water, just adding on the leftover gray, paying attention to the 3-dimension, where the shade should land. Usually the shade for spherical things are pretty round, wrapping around, and just adding the shadows very quickly. A little bit more accentuation of shade, that's it. And here's the look of my finished sketch. I also added I also copied down the little note on the package of how these eggs came from. And here is the look of my finished art journal spread, the very last page spread of my current sketchbook. And for the upper left side of the page, so I filled it in with the new leaves of the crab apple tree. Very cute little leaves and the little sparrow dancing around on the lawn. That's it. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you like my video, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. And I will see you again very soon next time. Have a great day.